I am Jackie DiPofi. I am very happy to be here with you today talking about playing to win the game of business. It's probably my favorite subject, so I am very excited to be here with you. I am going to set the mode for the discussion.
So to set the scene, to talk about playing to win the game of business, we can talk about football. And here we are in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, home of the University of Alabama Crimson Tide, the reigning national champions. And, of course, we don't want to forget where we are today in Auburn, Alabama, and who also are champions on the football field. And how do we know, though, when our team is winning? Well, not a trick question, it's the scoreboard. We all know, no matter what's going on in the stands or with the crowds, if we're not sure what the score is, we just look up at the scoreboard and there it is, telling us that our team is winning. And so how do we impact the scoreboard? Let's see, do we make completed passes? Do we tackle the other team's quarterback? We do all of those things, but there is only one thing that is going to make a difference on that scoreboard, and that is that football crossing that plane. That's when the scoreboard changes in football. And we learn all of that very young. What is the score when someone makes a touchdown? And so, if we are talking about the game of business, though, how do we know if we're winning? Now, we have the NCAA to tell us the rules of football. And a very exciting thing happened this week that I'd never seen before, that the rule maker came out and told me about it on the television. And that was one of the players lost his helmet during a play, and he kept playing, and he was penalized for doing that. And for the first time ever, I realized there was a rule where you can't do that because of safety. So there's lots of rules. We won't talk about them all now, but y'all all know all the different rules that the players on the field have to deal with. Well, what about the rules of business? You can see here there are a lot of rule makers for business. The IRS is definitely going to tell us what we need to do. We are going to have accountants telling us. We're going to have OSHA, EPA, you see federal, state, local governments. They're all setting rules for us. Professional standards and licensing boards. And compliance is not optional, and it's very costly. So if we're going to play this game, the game of business, and win, we need to know what the rules are and who's making them. Now, do we have a choice about complying with these rule makers? No, we don't. Just like when we're on the team, we don't have a choice. We have to play like the rules tell us and how the referees tell us. And in business, I like to think about the expression I heard about America, that we are the land of unbridled capitalism. Unbridled capitalism. I could debate that. We're a little bridled here. But we still are in this wonderful, exciting country that allows us the freedom to go into business. But we are told how to do that a little bit more. Now let's talk about business and how we know we're winning in business. The object of business is profit. Now sometimes I say that and I just want to go, well, duh, you know, who does not know that? But in my many years of talking with business people about why they're in business, quite often this is the last thing they talk about. So from a business point of view, as a manager, a decision maker, a coach, or whatever, the object of business is profit. And profit really is a measure of our ability to play this game. Business is not a hobby. A lot of people have come to me over the years and said, you know, I love to cook, I'm going to open a restaurant. Or I love to do this as a hobby and I think I'm going to turn it into a business. And what they do is turn their stress reducer, their hobby is something you do to reduce your stress, into their business, which then becomes their stress producer. There's no way of getting around it. If you're in business, you got stress coming on you. So you don't have, when you turn your hobby into a business, you no longer have something to go home to relax with. So it's not something you do for fun. I don't know that any of us really come to our office every day just for the fun of it. We come to earn profits. Business is not a charity. And I feel very strongly about charity. It's important in our community, but business is not a charity. Now that's not to say we can't take our profits and do charitable things with them, but we have to make the profits before we can help anyone else. It is a legal entity that pays taxes on profits, which then support the functioning of our governments. And I make that point because too often people think governments have money on their own. Well, they don't. They have what we give them to run the country. And this is how businesses are the economic stability. It's because we do make profits. We do pay taxes. We do support the government that allows us to have this unbridled capitalism in seeking of profits. Business is industry in action. That's industry in action. But yet it stabilizes the economy. So how do we know if we're winning the game of business? Well, again, this isn't a trick question either. All of you have been working for a while. So I'm hoping that you're saying, oh, well, this isn't new. This is the balance sheet. The first scoreboard of business is the balance sheet. And it is very simple math. Assets are what you own. And you subtract out what you owe, and the difference is net worth. Now, Bill Gates does this the same way we do it. He just has a few more circles, zeros, after his. But this is for all of us. It's a very simple math. You see some addition and subtraction. And many times I work with a lot of people, especially women, who say, I'm not good at math. I can't do that. And I'm going, oh, yes, you can, because this isn't higher math. This is some simple addition and subtraction. You need to know the score, how to keep score in business. The second scoreboard, the income and expense statement. We have our income. We subtract out our cost of goods sold. We see we have a gross profit that then we have to pay all of our overhead expenses out of. And if there is anything left called net profit before taxes, then we get to take a percentage of that and give it to the government, our taxes, to run the government. And this is the second scoreboard. Often there is a net loss, not always a net profit. Do we always win on the football field? And we do not always win on our income and expense statement. But that's what we want to talk about. And you'll notice that this is marked the bottom line. When people talk about, let's get down to the bottom line, this is what they're talking about. This net worth and this net profit. But those two documents, although they're scoreboards, they are historical in nature. Everything that you've done that impacts the income statement and the income and expense statement, you've already done it. When you see that statement, it's already happened. Okay. Well, what I want to talk about in winning the game of business is a statement that has not already happened, but is the most important single tool that you can have as a business person to help you win your game. This is that playbook. This is the playbook. It is where we will manage resources of time and money. It is a written vision of your future in terms of dollars. It's well researched what if scenarios with detailed supporting documentation. And most importantly, cash flow projection is a plan to make sure you pay your bills on time. If you have this big payment that's coming up and you're not prepared for it, you will have a lot of extra stress in your life. The cash flow projection, this tool to help you win the game of business, it links your action plan. It links your calendar, and it links your checkbook. The cash flow projection, it is of the future. By having a cash flow projection, you will avoid spur-of-the-moment decision making. You will reduce your stress, you will improve your credit, and it could save your business. It could save your partnership, it could save your marriage. The cash flow projection. Okay, I know that you will not be able to read this version, but this all has zeros in it. This is that cash flow projection. This is your scoreboard for the future. This has not happened. This is you planning ahead of time. And what I would challenge each one of you to do is to look to this very last spot, that net income, and set that as a goal that you then work toward. But right now, it's all zeros. Do you notice it's in quarters? Now, when the 4 quarters are up in football, if you hadn't won the game, what can you do? You go home and work harder and prepare some more. Very similar in this situation. So how do you impact your cash flow projection? Well, what I would suggest is you start doing some kind of assessment. And the form that I gave you out earlier today was an assessment tool for you to start to say, well, where am I really confident, or where do I really need help? That's an assessment. But also, if we were going to develop your particular cash flow projection, your plan for the future, we would look at this. This is the work of Michael Porter from Harvard Business School, and he talks about the forces of competition. And we would want to look through all the forces of competition that has to do with each one of you differently. And then we would do a SWOT analysis. Again, this shouldn't be new. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Now let me ask you, when I was talking about the scoreboard for the football team, and I said something about, well, does it matter how many times you make completed passes? Does it matter? Does it matter how many times you sack the quarterback of the other team? Does it matter?
Only if it leads to scores.
Only if it leads to something. I was going to say, if it doesn't impact that score, why do people keep all those statistics? I mean, I know people who can give me every statistic on every game ever played. And it's amazing to me. But if that doesn't change the scoreboard, why do you keep all those statistics? Because they tell you this. They tell you your strengths and weaknesses. Why do coaches watch hours and hours and hours of film on some other team? They are trying to do this. They are trying to analyze the strengths and the weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So when they go on the field, have they just woke up and come out there one day, or have they not practiced and practiced and practiced and watched film and played and just rehearsed and done so many things to go out on that field? And what I'm saying to you is, you as a business person needs to do some of these things also. This is where your offensive and defensive decision making takes place, is by looking at those forces in that prior slide and determining what are the SWOTs of each of those things. Your company, the competitor, your suppliers, the government, all of the things. If you want to truly make a plan to win the game of business, then you need to do some of the things that you've been doing for the game of football and applying them to your business. Now, you've done your assessment and you've assessed and SWOT and all of that. Now you want to get your sales up. What I'm going to do is just give you a couple of scenarios on how you would impact your scoreboard. And so one of the things that people might suggest is, well, I need to do some marketing. My sales are, everything was zero that we saw to begin with. So we want to do some marketing. And this program I developed in 1983. It is called the RAMPS Plan to Marketing Success. That stands for Research, Advertising, Merchandising, Promotion, and Sales. But now I want to talk about a different game. Anybody in here have never played the game of darts? Again, very common game. Darts. Well, how do you win the most points in darts? Not a trick question. You hit the bullseye. Quite simply, you hit the bullseye. And the closer you get to the bullseye, the more points you're going to have. Imagine that there's a 100 score on that red dot, and then a 75 on the circle beside it, and then 50 and 25. Dartboard, we've all played it. But what if you hit out here on your dartboard? No points. No points. What you want to do in marketing to be efficient and effective is to understand the face that goes on that bullseye. Who is it that makes up your customer? Because once you define who your customer is, then you can quit worrying about the rest of the world. You can only, even GE, as much funds as they may have available, you still cannot afford to reach everyone. So they have a target. Each of you has a target. And those are the people you want to worry about when you're doing marketing. The research is the first step. It's the most overlooked step. That's defining that target. Now this is how it would look from a consumer point of view. But as a management scientist, I also convert everything I do into a scientific model. And so that's what you see here. And what this proposes is there are a lot of relationships going on. What this also says, it's ongoing. And that you repeat this. You identify who your targets are, you reach them with frequency, you repeat, and you sharpen your focus over and over again. Just like, how do you get better at a game of darts? How do you get better? Practice. You practice, you practice. That's what marketing is. Practice finding that target customer. Now, for all the HR people in the room, here's another scenario. Okay, we want to increase our marketing, increase our sales, but maybe we need some help. And although this says owner over there, it could be manager, whatever. But at time one in our business, our owner is doing everything. You will see the top line that says management. There are 5 steps of management: planning, organizing, budgeting, staffing, controlling. And what do you manage? You manage all the functions of the business. You manage accounting, finance, marketing, human resources, and the favorite of most business owners, operations. Operation is usually the development of that product or idea or service that really encourage the person or move the person to do what they're doing. And that's usually the part most people enjoy, is that operations. And in talking about operations, someone mentioned bottlenecks earlier. Yeah. Well, this is another game that I want you to think about. Have you ever played what is called like a marble works game? And you put a series of pipes together. And no matter how you put the pipes together, gravity takes place and all the marbles fall down. Okay. But in that situation, you might have a bottleneck. Now, in time 2, you see that the owner has hired someone. And so all of these activities that are these little circles are just falling down onto the individual. So this is just a visual of reality, all of these are. So we're going to hire somebody. So getting back to the scoreboard, what does all these decisions mean? And when I talked about the cash flow, I said you have a lot of what-if situations. Well, here I've given you 2 what-if situations. What if you increased your marketing budget, and what if you hired somebody? Well, let's look and see what happens here. Now, we are starting this business in this scenario with $10,000. And over the years, I have had many individuals come to me and say, Jackie, I have $10,000. I'm going to start a business. And I'm going to say, well, let's do a cash flow projection. Before you spend any of your money, before you sign a lease, before you quit your job, let's do this. So this is that what if. So the first thing I said is, what if we start the marketing campaign at $1,000 a month? I mean, we've opened our business. We got to let people know about it. So we spend some money and do some marketing, okay? And then we're going to get really busy because that marketing is going to cause a lot of sales, and so we need some help. And so the next month we hire someone. You will notice that there are no guarantee of changes in sales when either one of these things happen. This is an eye-opener for employees. Sometimes an employee will say, the boss has hired me, they're going to pay me, in this case, I think we said $24,000, and they don't realize that they need to help the boss increase sales by how much we've hired them. Because as you can see, we started with $10,000, we increased our marketing, we hired somebody, and in 4 months, we have negative cash position of $480. Are we winning the game of business? No. The cash flow projection is the most important tool for planning to win the game of business. Every decision that you make will impact the scoreboard. So I really encourage you, if you are not comfortable with the scoreboard, if you can't get a balance sheet or an income and expense statement and feel comfortable with it, then that's where you want to start in learning about how to play the game of business. And that's not to say I want you to all to become accountants. I don't. But I want you to know that when somebody gives you a statement of your money, that you are comfortable with what that statement is telling you and how you impact the scoreboard. Now, there are many reasons for failure, but there are equally many reasons for success, and so I wanted to just emphasize that we are in this great capitalistic country, and that we are told almost from birth that one of the American dreams is to own your own business. But how many of you were taught these 2 scoreboards when you were in school? Now, I think we said we learned how to score football when we were about 6 or 7 years old. Now, we're all told, yes, you can start a business when you grow up, but we're not necessarily told how to run that business. And so, to be a successful business, you want to have good cash flow management. You want to have a plan. That is 12 months. If I were to say to you, come back into this room 12 months from now and tell me how you did, hopefully you would start now and plan it. You wouldn't just get up each day and let life happen to you. You would plan it. You would have good cash flow management. Equally so, you got to have good time management. Now let me ask you, we're out on the field. You pick your favorite team. And we are running up and down that field for 60 minutes. And we never cross that goal line. Do we have good time management? No. You got to plan your time and how you're going to use it, or you're not going to get that sale, which is the goal line for us. So you want to be sure you're managing your time. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people who have stayed very busy going broke by not doing these things. Clear understanding of that bullseye, who is your target market, consistent quality products, and quality service, goes without saying. For all of you HR people, recruiting and selecting and training your people is definitely one of the things that you're going to have to do to win the game of business. Sufficient capitalization for startup. That $10,000 might have seemed like a lot to an individual, but you can see that's not very much money to get you through that startup period where those sales are still low. So you've got to have proper capitalization. Excellent communication and use of technology. Today, if you are not just in love with the smartphone, get in love with it. Because if you are going to continue to communicate with the youth, our next workforce, you're really going to have to embrace that technology. For some of us, we can remember days before all of that. But for the people that we're hiring, they can't. They've lived their whole life with being able to reach out almost instantly to any piece of information. So if you really want to connect with that group, embrace that technology. And then you can win the game of business if you know the rules. And I'm hoping that you feel a little bit more comfortable with understanding the rules that you've got to know to win. Now, in closing, I just want to say that everything I've said today is universal. It applies to each and every one of us, whether we are in business or whether we are just heading up a social group in our community, or if we have a church outing or a goal for our church, our community. Everything that's we talked about playing the win the game of business applies to all of the things that we do in our life. But you want to plan your game. You want to say 12 months from now, this is where I'm going to be. And plan how to get there. You want to provide ethical leadership. I just can't emphasize that enough, how often there are just too many stories that we hear that we don't want to hear. Going back to football and what happened this weekend. The Crimson Tide made a touchdown, and the young man who made that touchdown, he celebrated inappropriately. Did anyone see that? Mm-hmm. The whole world saw that. And after it was over, Coach Saban was put a microphone right in his face for the world to see and asked, well, what do you think about that? And he said, we are not that kind of people. He was setting a standard of ethics right there. We are not that kind of people. He is the leader. We are the leaders in this community. We need to have ethical leadership. We want to set goals. We want to be able to share that vision. Logic and rational man is what we like to talk about as scientists and engineers, but it's not a rational situation. It's an emotional situation. And to get our team on board, we've got to be able to share that vision with them. We have to build a good team. And then we have to delegate responsibilities. Too many individuals are that owner that has all of that stuff going on, all those little circles that's showing all the activities. And then they hire someone, but they never delegate. You got to be able to pass those skills down to your people and delegate. Teach, 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 practice, practice, practice. Did the Crimson Tide become national champions by just showing up on game day? Did the Tigers, did they become national champions by just showing up on game day? No. While a lot of us were tailgating and partying, they were working. Hard work. That's what it takes to be successful. Get help when needed. And I'm here to say, if you are uncomfortable with any concept in business, I am here to help you. So, get help when you need it. Many of these companies have come in and immediately hired an HR person. That was the help they needed. So they got someone right in. And I believe that when we are successful, we must give back to the community. I said business is not a charity. It's not. But that doesn't take away any of our responsibilities that when we are fortunate enough to be blessed enough that we are successful, that we give back to the community. And I think when you take all of these things into consideration, that's how you win the game of business. If I can encourage you to study up on the rules of business and apply them, and let me know how I might be able to help you in that regard. And together we will continue the great tradition that Auburn, the city of Auburn, and Opelika, Lee County has as being a leader in business and economic development in our state. Right here in this room and in this area, we are leaders of business for our state. So it's a great honor to be here with you and to be a part of it. Any questions, comments? Well, then go out and win.